say a couple of words of introduction. Hi, Hadass. Well, Katie, it's Baker from OU Press. I'm glad you're here to see a little bit of what we're doing. And, I want to I want to thank everybody for participating in today's Zoom event. I want to let everyone know that, first of all, if we've never met before, I'm Alan Levinson. I'm the director of the Schusterman Center of Judaic and Israel Studies here at the University of Oklahoma. For those of you who are completely new to us, all of our programming is free and open to the public, and everybody is welcome always to join in on whatever we're doing. We do about 20 plus programs a year. Most of them are both live and via Zoom, but today, since one of our key speakers is in Berlin, and it's nighttime there, we're doing this Zoom only. This does happen sometimes. If our speakers aren't from Berlin, they might be from Israel, but generally we like to do both in person and blended. Today's discussion is with Professor Carlos Hill and Zabet Schmittals, and in some ways it continues a conversation on bearing witness that we began a couple of weeks ago. And at that conversation, Professor Carlos Hill, Professor Hadass Cohn, who's here, and Professor Karsten Chapkow, who is lives in Berlin when he's not here in Norman. We had a discussion on different ways of recalling and remembering and memorializing the Holocaust and other issues of life in Berlin. And I want you to know that if you would like to listen to that conversation in part, you should really go to our YouTube channel, which is on the Schusterman Center webpage. Extremely easy to access. It's right on the homepage. And if you say, well, how do I get to the Schusterman Center? All you have to do is use the words Jewish and Oklahoma, and we will magically appear near the top of your searches. So I would, if you're interested, I would invite you to do that. On behalf of the Schusterman Center, I would like to thank Professor Hill for his initiation of this discussion with Zabet Schmittals and her extraordinary work as an educator in Berlin. They still call it history there. We call it Geschichte. I don't know. In America, we've already gone to the more anodyne social studies, but I'm glad you've stuck to your guns. I want to just introduce my friend Carlos, and then he'll introduce the rest of the event. Professor Carlos Hill is Regents Professor of the Clara Luper Department of African and African American Studies here at Oklahoma. Dr. Hill is the author of 3 books: Beyond the Rope, The Impact of Lynching on Black Culture and Memory; The Murder of Emmett Till, A Graphic History; and very recently, the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, A Photographic History, which Professor Hill and Barry Roseman debuted at OU last year. Dr. Hill also founded the Tulsa Race Massacre Oklahoma Teachers Institute to support the teaching of the Race Massacre to thousands of middle school and high school students. He serves on too many boards and too many faculties to mention. so I will not. But I will say that we're very honored that he's also now joined the OU Schusterman Judaic and Israel Studies faculty, and we're glad to have him, and we're so glad for his initiative in today's program. So I'll now mute myself and turn it over to Professor Carlos.
Well, Alan, I can't wait until I get a chance to introduce you. I'm going to put as much love as you put into that, into your introduction. Thank you so much, Alan, my friend, for introducing me. And thank you. You are the reason why we're doing this event. You've been so wonderful facilitating both the first event that we did in September and this one, as well as Trice. He's been so amazing in helping us make sure that this event goes smoothly. So thank you, Alan. Thank you to the Schusterman Center for making this event possible. Thank you for the audience for being here to bear witness to this conversation. This is a really special opportunity to hear from a really inspirational teacher, Zabet Schmittals, who's doing some of the most difficult, not just historical teaching about the Holocaust, he's also doing some amazing memorialization work in the very neighborhood, right, where much of the violence, some of the violence began. And so what I want to do is to sort of provide some context for why Zabet and I came into contact with each other. And I want to just briefly give some context about how that happened, that connection happened. I want to share a video that will provide more context for why Zabet and I have remained in contact and remained in relationship. And I want to introduce to you then the director or the organization that brought me to Berlin this past summer. And he will give more context on our relationship and the work that Zabet, as well as many others, are doing in Germany. And so my relationship with Widen the Circle begins really in June of 2021, when I and several others traveled to Berlin to participate in Widen the Circle's summer program. And we also, as participants in the summer program, the visiting program, we were able to meet with many Obermeyer Award winners. We were able to attend for one day the summer forum that brings together Obermeyer Award winners. And so last summer, June of 2021, I was able to meet Zabet in the context of the visiting program, the summer forum. And it's there that I met also her students, right? And we're gonna talk a lot about her. We're gonna talk a lot about her students. I'll say in short, they changed my life. Hearing their stories changed my life. And I told Zabet, when you change my life, I'm gonna change yours. And so we are here today. And so what I want to do now is just sort of share a video that Widen the Circle created to help the public understand, both in the US and in Germany, the important work that it's engaged with. And then once we've seen that, I'll introduce Joel Obermeyer, who is the executive director of Widen the Circle. So just give me one moment to share screen and the video.
Widen the Circle started with this award ceremony that my father started in Berlin that's been going on for 20 years that honors Germans who have done profound work to preserve pieces of Jewish history and culture in Germany. Many of these same awardees have done very, very profound things to fight prejudice or to reconcile with a history that allowed prejudice to grow or to make connections in the world that you would just not expect. Our awardees are amazing, and if you hear their stories, you cannot help but have some hope. I think about the Yellow Brick Wall project at an elementary school in Berlin. It teaches children about the Holocaust and the importance of preventing hate. The project is so inspiring that it influenced the construction of a memorial to the victims of lynching in Montgomery, Alabama. Or there's a man from southern Germany who spent 40 years in his hometown researching the history of the local Jewish community. Each year, through his efforts, dozens of Jews from around the world come to town to locate their family roots. In addition to seeing where their relatives lived and worked, they get an acknowledgement of how their relatives suffered that is very powerful. Or a teacher whose students are mostly from difficult immigrant backgrounds. She found that empathy for their suffering is the first step in helping them understand the suffering of others. They maintain a Holocaust Memorial at a train tracks near their school, a place where thousands of Jews were sent to death camps. But instead of thinking of it as just an award ceremony, you can think of it in a different way, which is it's kind of a platform. This shouldn't just be about an award, it should be about impact. And that's what became Widen the Circle. So we thought, okay, if we're gonna have an impact, we have all these awardees, they have all this knowledge, maybe we should try and start a network. And that was the beginning of what became the forum, that we building a network that we never had before, both in terms of network of people doing the work, but also a network of what I'll call like visiting experts who are really good at what they do and feel moved by what we're doing. We've started this in Germany because that's where our foundation is, that's where our history is. But we can see how the same activities can be valuable elsewhere. And so now we're beginning both think and do things in the United States where we can experiment and begin to understand what's going to work there. And we know that these issues are relevant in both places. There's a tide of hate out there. And what we know is we have a way of having an impact on it, which is by identifying people who are on the ground level are doing effective things to push back against this tide. And we bring ingredients. We bring our own expertise, we bring our network, we bring the ability to recognize people and to tell their stories and to inspire in order to push back against this tide of hate, to expand what they can do, but also extend it so that other people can do it elsewhere in the world. Widen the Circle finds and recognizes extraordinary work happening in unexpected places, primarily that relates to issues of prejudice and a shared understanding of the past. We are doing this because it's desperately needed. We're doing this because we have a 2-decade history of involvement in these issues. We're doing this because we've developed the capabilities and network and team to have a broad impact. And it's time for us to step up this kind of challenge. Our goal is to widen the circle of respect, understanding, and reconciliation.
That is a fabulous video, Joel. I want to say that from the outset. I've watched that video multiple times. I also want to thank you before I introduce you and ask you to speak. I just want to thank you for inviting me into that international network that you have been building, because I was able to meet Zabet and be impacted by her and her students. With that, Joel, I would love it if you could share with us a little bit more context and detail about Widen the Circle that might not have been covered in the brief documentary that you just shared with us. But also if you could just, again, just help us to understand the importance, illuminate the importance of some of the work that Frau Zabet Schmittals has been doing in Berlin.
I would love to do that, Carlos. First, let me just say it's an honor to be here, Carlos. It's been an honor both to participate in this and to be involved with you ever since the program we started, we went on together. And I also want to thank the Schusterman Center and Alan Levinson for putting this together. So let's start with that. But maybe what I should do is, let me give you like sort of a macro view of what we're doing. And then your conversation with Zabet will give you kind of more like the on the ground view, if you will. So look, as you saw in the film, Widen the Circle started with an award ceremony that honors people who do extraordinary things to preserve pieces of Jewish history and culture in Germany. So it's a program that was started by my father. and is now the main formal observation of International Holocaust Remembrance Day at the Berlin Parliament. That's where it started. But where it's gone is to realize that the work that we saw through these awards made sense as almost as a platform to make change. And so let me just say, Widen the Circle itself works with people who uncover local history, typically related to oppression, like Jewish history and Holocaust in Germany, or the legacy of white supremacy here in the US. And our goal is to use lessons of that history to create a more just world today. And the way we do that is we developed a very deep connection to amazing local work going on in Germany. Many projects, and many people doing really, really fascinating things and very impactful things. We've started to connect the power and energy of that work to the United States, which is something that both Zabet and Carlos were part of. And we're doing that at a time when we believe history and memory are often under attack here in the US in terms of whether people are even going to talk about them or acknowledge them. The ways we do this, we have the awards. We have a network of practitioners in Germany. Backbone is our own awardees. And the awards have been going on for 23 years now. And then our most recent program, but probably the one that has the most, one of the most biggest potentials for impact is something we call international bridge building. And the idea behind it is that people who deal with a legacy of tough history, whether that might be in Germany or the US or somewhere else, but let's just talk Germany and the US, while the context is very different, many of the challenges that they run into actually are very similar. And what we believe is by bringing them together in a very designed and powerful way, we can help them have more impact on their own. So in this bridge building area for Widen the Circle, our main program is something called the Visiting Program. And that's the Visiting Program is an immersive educational program in Germany. We bring a group of people from the US to Germany who deal with the legacy of tough history in the United States to meet with counterparts in Germany, some of whom actually participate in the whole program for a week-long program, and we connect them so that those who are dealing with issues around local history, memory, and prejudice in Germany and the US have a chance to interact. So they can learn from one another, develop ideas, perspectives, and tools and techniques maybe, but also energizing them and fueling them to do further work afterward. And Carlos, you and Zabet met through this program. And I would just say that the core idea behind it, aside from just building bridges, is that local history and working on local history has a power to it that is often underutilized. And the idea is if you want to change somebody's view both about history and prejudice, let's say, and prejudice is usually about how you view somebody else, let's say, learning about what happened down the street from you or to a person who you can talk to or a personal story that you can really see where it's from can really change how young people and adults honestly see the world and has a really powerful potential to fight prejudice. And the reason we know that is because we've seen it over and over and over again. So I'm going to turn it back to you guys in a second, but I want to finish with actually a little anecdote, which is about how I first met Zabet and her students. And you'll get all her background and everything, Carlos, when you talk with Zabet. But I just want to. So Zabet was an awardee of ours in 2020, and it just so happened that we were able to go to a play put on by her students the weekend before our award ceremony. And the play was a story about a family that had lived in this neighborhood near the high school where Zabet teaches, called the Meyerowitz family, Martin and Helen Meyerowitz and their children. And Martin died in the Holocaust, actually before the Holocaust in a way. Well, actually sort of during the Holocaust. And Helen Meyerowitz was, I think, died in one of the camps. I think that's right. But here's the important part. The play is meticulously researched, was put on by around 12, 14 of her students. The lead role, which was Helen Meyerowitz, the matriarch of this family, was played by a young woman named Nayera, who was wearing a hijab and long robes the entire time she was playing Helen Meyerowitz. And what I thought was so impressive about it was she had every bit as much passion and character and everything that you would want in an actor who is playing a role of somebody who came to such a tragic end. But looked different maybe than what you might have expected. And when we were able to speak to our students afterward, what was really clear was how important it was to them personally to be part of this play and part of this effort that relates to, educating and commemorating this history. And so it's just something that stuck with me. So let me leave it at that. But I think that gets you sort of the context.
Yes.
And I look forward to hearing the two of you speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joel, for providing that context and that connection between the three of us. Because in so many ways, it wasn't just meeting with Zabet, it was the whole experience of meeting with the current award, Obermeyer Award winners, as well as alumni. So thank you again for inviting me into this international network that's doing amazing work. And it's my honor and privilege to introduce you to Zabet Schmittals, who I think of all the people that I met had the deepest impact on me. Zabet is a high school history teacher at Theodor Hess Community School in Berlin. In 2020, she was an Obermeyer Award winner for the work that her and her students have done, the moving work that they've done to commemorate and to remember the Holocaust at their school and in the neighborhood in which their school currently is. And so today we have a great opportunity. I have a great honor and a privilege to sort of talk with her about the inspirational work that she has done. And so Zabet, it is so wonderful to see you. I get to see you almost every week and talk to you every week. But I'm glad that I'm able to share you with the OU community. How are you doing today?
Thank you, and good day to all. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'd like to say thank you very much for inviting me today.
Absolutely. Well, I want to jump right into the questions because I really want the audience to get a deep sense, or as deep a sense as they can in the time that we have, for the extraordinary work that you've been doing with your students. And so I just want to really start from the top and just give them some context for the students that you're working with. So can you just tell us a little background on on Theodor Hess Community School?
Yeah, you call me high school teacher, but in fact, I think I'm not a high school teacher. We call our school community school, which means that we are a comprehensive school. So we have high school students, yes, but we also have, for example, students with mentally disabilities, who of course will never enter any university at all. But we do have students who will enter the university. So yeah, we have a big range of students. We also have the cultural diversity at school. So about 90% of our students are with an immigrant background. Most of them come from Turkey or from Arabic-speaking countries, but as well from Asia, Eastern Europe, and Africa as well. Mm-hmm. This district where our school is a quite poor area. So most of my students come from, well, educationally disadvantaged families, and the families live on social welfare. This means that one or the main goal of our school is that we try to manage that these students can reach maybe the university, or at least that they have something they can build on their future. And this means that we have to find new sorts of educating about or teaching, because they don't have the same chance than many other students in Berlin have. Yeah, that's maybe, this is one point about. Yeah, and this also means that we have to be more practical in our way of teaching. That means that we try to go out of the school quite often, and that we visit places, or we talk to people, or we go to places where they can see what sort of work they can do, or what sort of studies they can do after school. And yeah.
Okay. And so what you're describing and what I've learned so much by meeting your students is that they are from these diverse backgrounds, immigrant backgrounds, and many of them have sort of a dim sort of perspective on their future, right? But you have been able to breathe a lot of sort of, I want to say, hope into them, right? And I definitely want us to touch upon that later, but I want to stay with the school, because the school is so important to the remembrance work that you and your students have been doing. And so can you just talk a little bit about the connection between the school and the Nazi period or the Nazi era?
Well, the main connection probably is that there is a big, or there used to be a big train station opposite of our school, and from this train station, over 30,000 Jewish people were deported in the years between 1942 and 1944, and this since 2017. There's a memorial place now. This means that they made the track, one of the tracks, visible again, and the government started to plant trees there. So there's a sort of little wood between two huge discount stores. So it's a bit odd, I think, the atmosphere there, but still there is a small place for commemorating the victims. And what the students did is that they, at the beginning, they actually helped to create this memorial. And then in the second step, they started to do the research work on people who were deported from this deportation station. And since then, we are doing memorial events every November the 9th. There's one event, but quite often we do it twice or three times a year in memorial play.
And one of the more, and I just want to add a story here. One of the moving moments that I experienced when I was in Berlin is one of the memorial presentations that her students did at Track 69. And they did that presentation in English so that everyone, the Americans could understand. And the preparation that her students had to, just do in order to present it so flawlessly as they did was really moving. And just everything about their presentation was just beautiful. And so it is something to see and something to witness if you're ever able to see her students share what they know about this history. Is there anything else, Zabet, that you would want to share about?
Maybe because, I started this work because in Berlin, or in my background, there are many people who say, the students with immigration background, they are not interested in German history. And at the beginning, I believed them, but after a while, I thought I think that's not right, because when I started to get interested in the German history, I started it because of my family background, because I'm a part of a generation. My parents, for example, they didn't know anything about the Holocaust when they were young. They didn't know, they weren't taught in school. They only started to ask their parents when they were young adults. And I remember how they argued with my grandparents about the history, and like my grandmother left our house shouting and that she would never come again because my parents are not respectful towards her. And and I think this was a very emotional way of dealing with the past. And when I started to get involved into the memorial culture, it was always the question about, are we guilty? Are we responsible for what happened in Germany and in other countries? And this question actually made me going at that time. But when I became a teacher, and I had realized the time were changing, and that the students nowadays, they don't feel themselves responsible really as Germans, probably especially not my students, because most of the families don't come from Germany originally, and they, of course, they don't feel guilty. And but for them it's important, like it was for me, to connect the past with the future, or with their present. It means that we have to, or I had to learn that I have to listen to their stories about their family backgrounds, and many of them have a very hard and painful family history. Many of them are refugees or immigrants, or some of them are Palestine, and they sometimes when they talk about Jewish people, you think, well, they are anti-Semitic, but in fact they just mixed up their family history with what they think about people. So the first step was, the big step was actually to bring them to Israel. This was a big change for the whole group, because then they found out, well, there are nice people in Israel. They were welcomed, the students. There are Arabic people as well. And it was actually then when the students said, we want to continue with this work. It was not me who was planning 7 years ago, I'm going to build up a working group for the next 10 years. It was the students said, we really want to do this work now, because we now understood that, the world is different than we thought before. So I think it's important to listen to them first and not to judge them because they are Muslim, or they are Black, or they come from Eastern Europe or wherever, because they bring their own story, and they are important to, that we listen to them.
And let me just say, having met your students this past summer, the kind of all the time and the effort and energy that you've put into them, they share with me how much it meant to them. And that's also became so moving about me meeting you, meeting your students and hearing what they said about you and the work that you've been able to do with them. I want to stay on this point, Zabet, because I think you really do have a methodology, a pedagogy for how you engage your students in not just commemoration work, but just in the classroom. And so can you, talk a little bit more and get a little bit more specific about your approach to teaching the Holocaust? Because one of the things that you've emphasized to me is how you center empathy. You center caring about them first, so that they will then care about the history of the school, the history of the neighborhood, and ultimately the history that you wanted them to commemorate.
I think my work is, you can put it under the headline biographic work. I always start with that they start researching their own family history, because it's surprising how less they sometimes know about their background. They don't sometimes they don't even know why the family came to Berlin or to Germany, and they only because of this project where they are supposed to ask, or their parents or their grandparents, they get to know about themselves, and for them sometimes it's very hard to talk about it, because they get to know things about the family they either they didn't know themselves, or they never talked about it before, and that sometimes they have the experience that in German schools it's not important, or that nobody is asking for their stories, because they are supposed to get integrated in the German society, and they are not supposed to think about their own history. That's what they feel. And to be asked to talk about themselves, I think this makes a difference for them. And then they find out themselves that they have so much to do with racism, disintegration, and to be forced to leave a country, to be persecuted or whatever, because they have so much stories in their family. And when they start to research on biographies of the neighborhood from Jewish people, they do it so emotional, because it's not complete, it's not straight, not, how do you say, they know what they are talking about. It's not just in the books, or because they can connect to themselves somehow, you know? And so I think by now I would say the other way around, that it's much easier, if you can speak of easier, to teach the Holocaust and the suffering of the people to the students with an immigration background than with white German students, because it's so far away for them. And all the trips we didn't only go to Israel. We went to Spain and France and Italy and Poland, and we always tried to connect the past with the present. What is the meaning of refugees? There were many Jewish refugees trying to get out of Germany via France and Spain. This was one topic. Or we went to Italy because they thought, after we went to Poland, where we saw all these horrible places, Auschwitz and all the concentration camps. At that time, the students asked, why never, weren't there any people who did anything against it? And then I said, yeah, there were some, not a lot, but there were some partisans. And we went to Italy, and we talked actually to try to choose partisans who were in the resistance. And it was really, everyone was very touched by their stories. So, and they said, yeah, when will be the point for us to do resistance, for example, in our life? What must happen to say, okay, I won't do that anymore? And so they deal with the past, but all the time they think about themselves and about their life in the present as well.
So Zabet, when I call you a high school history teacher, this is what I'm talking about right here. Like the way in which you've explained to us that methodology. And I want to say this, that I have begun to adopt in my own sort of history of lynching and racial violence class, this actual semester that I'm teaching it. Because what I have gained from you is the ways in which you do center biography, but you make sure the students understand their relationship first to their own history, their own past, so that they understand then or can begin to empathize with Jews who suffered during the Holocaust. And one of the most powerful things that you've shared with me is the ways in which, by mining their own history and understanding the kind of racism that they've experienced, they then, when they encounter the racism and the anti-Semitism that Jews experienced under Nazi Germany, they began to see their lives together, right? And or at least similarly. And so that's where the power of the methodology is. And that's where I've really, in so many ways, tried to incorporate that right now into my classroom. And I think similar to the kind of impact that it has on empowering students that I've seen in your students, I'm seeing it to a certain degree in my students. And so you are every bit of I want to just call you Professor Zabet Schmittals from now on. So thank you. But I promise to share a video with with the audience, because we don't have any of your students. We weren't able to have any of your students here with us, but certainly we can share with the audience a video that really helps them to understand the impact that your teaching, your approach is not just sort of centering their own sort of their relationship to the past. It's also about traveling. And so your methodology for teaching the Holocaust really includes what we call in the United States high impact teaching and learning. And so I want to share the video, Widen the Circle video, that captures two of your students talking about the experience of your history classroom. And so if you could just give me one moment to share screen.
Mein Name ist Zabet Schmittals. Ich bin Lehrerin an der Theodor-Heuss-Gemeinschaftsschule in Berlin-Moabit und seit 2015 leite ich die Arbeitsgemeinschaft Erinnern. Für die Schülerinnen und Schüler ist natürlich zentral die Studienreisen, die wir unternehmen, weil das sicherlich was Besonderes ist. Das sind zum Teil sehr weite Reisen. Aber eigentlich geht es in einem Projekt darum, dass wir uns mit unterschiedlichen Aspekten des Nationalsozialismus beschäftigen. Gerade auf dieser Polenreise, die nicht nur aus den Gründen, was wir dort gesehen haben, dass es eine sehr emotionale Reise war, sondern weil es eben auch gerade in Polen leider zu ziemlich heftigen Übergriffen gegen Schülerinnen und Schüler der Gruppe gekommen ist, also zum Beispiel auch gegen Isra und gegen anderen, also vor allem gegenüber den Mädchen, die ein Kopftuch tragen. Und natürlich dieses mehr oder weniger am gleichen Tag, ja, am Vormittag gucken wir uns eine Gedenkstätte an und am Nachmittag passiert das, wird das natürlich verschwimmen die Grenzen ein bisschen so, ne?
Also wir sind wegen der Geschichte hingegangen, um mehr zu wissen. Und das war halt sehr enttäuschend für uns, dass wir dann Ähnliches erfahren mussten. Wir waren ziemlich schockiert auch am Anfang.
Ich fand es schon auch bezeichnend, dass nach der Polenreise dann die Frage aufkam, warum konnte das geschehen und warum hat das niemand verhindert? Und wir dann darüber dann auf das Thema Widerstand gekommen sind. Und also unsere vierte Reise hat uns dann eben nach Italien gebracht, weil wir uns da dann eben um den italienischen Partisanenkrieg gekümmert haben. Und auch das fand ich wieder eine logische Entwicklung heraus, zu sagen, also diese Grauen der Verbrechen in Polen sich anzugucken und dann eben auch tatsächlich auch noch Rassismus selbst zu erfahren, zu sagen, ja, wann müssen Menschen eigentlich Widerstand leisten und wie kann Widerstand aussehen?
Diese Reisen und die Orte, die wir besucht haben zusammen, die haben uns alle sensibilisiert.
Aber sonst vergessen wir unsere Pflichten. Sonst vergessen wir, dass wir gedenken müssen oder dass wir Widerstand leisten müssen oder dass wir gegen Unrecht vorgehen sollten. Das würden wir ja alles vergessen. Dann würden wir ja nur auf uns fixiert sein.
Ich fand es gut, dass wir so eine tolle Lehrerin bekommen haben, weil ich finde, man sollte in der Schule schon anfangen, nicht nur Mathe, Deutsch, Geschichte zu haben, sondern auch sowas wie Antidiskriminierungsunterricht oder irgendwie so, wo man lernt, wie Isra schon sagt, was sind eigentlich meine Pflichten der Gesellschaft gegenüber, was sind meine Pflichten meinen Mitschülern gegenüber, meinen Freunden gegenüber, und das hat Frau Schmidthals uns sozusagen gegeben mit der AG und allem, was wir gemacht haben.
Zabet, I get chills when I watch that video. and the reason is for what you describe, the students that you initially meet, right? And the students that they ultimately become, it's really powerful to me. Chrissy, one of the last student to speak, I was able to meet her this summer in Germany. She speaks really eloquently about memorial work and Holocaust remembrance work. But what makes her similar to all the other students is kind of what was captured at the end, where they talked about responsibility and accountability, right? That they are now, they have a relationship of accountability and responsibility to the Holocaust, right? Because of the work that they did on the memorial projects. And so it's all of that combined that makes what you do so powerful, that the students as a result of, right, as a result of the memorial work, have this new relationship, this relationship of accountability, but most importantly of ownership to the past. And that's what I'm always trying to get students in my history and lynching and racial violence class to sort of to get, is to understand their relationship, not to just know about the past, but to understand their relationship to the past. And because they have a relationship to the past, they take ownership of it. They are accountable to it. And so this is some of the most, for these reasons, this is some of the most powerful teaching that I've seen happen. And I don't say that lightly. I say that knowing someone like Clara Luper existed, who was also a history teacher, who changed the world through, empowering her students. I've seen so much of that in you, Zabet. I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And I wanted to make sure everyone else knew that too. But is there any, I want you to definitely have the last words, Zabet. Is there anything that you would share about your students that you haven't had a chance to, like in terms of the impact that this work has had on them, or the impact that the work has had on you? Is there anything that you would like to share that you haven't shared?
I think that I learned at least as much as the students did, because I changed the way I looked at the young people and the way I teach, and yeah, the way that how people can develop. And yeah, I think that the good thing about the whole work was that it was not planned in advance, that it was just going on, and the students and me, we both we are still working together, and it's not a plan. I don't know what we are going to do next year, or well, maybe I know, but at the whole, I think this is really good, because then we can really work together, and it's not that the hierarchy between teachers and students, but it's something, yeah, that we learn from each other, and it's really great, and I'm really proud of my students.
Absolutely. So I bet I would be remiss if I did not talk at least a little bit about what we are hopefully have in store planning, because her students aren't just interested in commemorating or just simply learning about Holocaust remembrance. They are true remembrance workers who travel the world to learn more about how to do the work they want to do in and around their school better. And so my hope is that they'll be able to come to Oklahoma next summer during a period of break that they have, and help them to understand Oklahoma remembrance culture, help them to see a college campus. Many of them, would deeply benefit from coming to the US and seeing the opportunities that exist here for students such as them. And so in so many ways, this is would be a thank you for how they have changed my life. And so Zabet and I have been meeting weekly, daily to talk about how to do this. But also I'm deeply interested in the work that they're doing in Germany, and have tried to support it as much as I can. And so Zabet, can you tell them a little bit about the November 9th program that you have coming up?
Yeah, well, we just found out about two Jewish teachers who used to work at our school in 1933, well, before 1933, because at that date, they have to leave. And yeah, they got fired from school. And we did research on these two teachers, and we want to commemorate them at our celebration on the November the 9th. we're doing a little play based on documents we found in the archive, let's say, I don't know. And yeah, and both, one of them died because of a heart attack he got when he was attacked by Nazis at the bus stop a few years after he was banned from school, and the other one commit suicide just the night before he was supposed to be deported together with his brother. And the wife of one of the teacher, she was actually deported from the deportation station across our opposite of our school. And this is what we're doing on the 9th of November.
That's going to be a beautiful program. I was trying to convince Zabet earlier to record it, but it's too many technical difficulties with it. So we'll probably I'll just have to find a way there somehow. But I wanted
maybe we will record it. Maybe
we can record it. Okay. At any rate, I could ask you more questions, I bet. I'm sure there are questions that members of the audience have for you. And so I just want to in the bit of time that we have, just open it up for maybe a few questions, and then I'll have to turn it over to Alan. But are there any questions? I think I see, I can only see so many people in the screen, but I see Michael. Michael, you have a question? Can you unmute?
You're on mute.
Yes, first of all, for Joel, why did your father feel it was important to do this? What was his history, or your family's history, that he felt it was so important for these awards to go out? And for Sabeth, you gave a little history about why, but was there something more about what was going on in Germany that you felt it was such an important need for the students to learn this kind of thing? And then the other is that, as most people know, anti-Semitism is known as the first hatred. But going forward, Joel, you said that you're expanding the program, and especially since you deal with a lot of Turkish students, I guess. Are you going to deal with the whole issue of the Armenian Genocide that came before the Holocaust? With American history, you're going to be able to deal with the Native American genocide that took place before the Holocaust and before the Armenian Genocide. Those are two groups that I think get forgotten in the world history about what's gone on, and especially since you have Turkish students. So I'm just wondering if you're going to reach out to teachers from, like you did with Carlos, and what happened with him, that maybe you would have that same reaction with Turkish teachers and with Indian teachers.
Wow, that's a very interesting set of questions there. Let me answer a couple, and then let me send to Zabet to the question for her. I'm going to go opposite direction, Michael. So Widen the Circle started with work related to German history, of course, German Jewish history. And we see the ability to have an impact on places that are also trying to deal with the legacy of tough history. But we're really small. And if you're really small and you decide you want to spread out a little bit to build these bridges, you got to concentrate your forces a little bit. So we started really with work around people dealing with the legacy of white supremacy in the US, particularly slavery, primarily because we already saw connections between their work and work going on in Germany, connections we had nothing to do with. And I would just say some of these other difficult histories, where you mentioned the Armenian Genocide, I think you mentioned one other, but I'm just not remembering. But there's, and of course there's a whole, there's a whole range of tough histories to deal with. And I would just say, we think they're consistent with what we're doing. We can, we just have to take it a little step by step. Does that answer your question? Yeah, hopefully.
Genocide was the American Indian genocide.
Sure, for sure. And of course, there's lots to say that bridges should be built there too. It's just a question of being small and kind of taking it step by step. And honestly, just to be honest, until we brought the group that we brought this June, because we really redid this program and had somebody like Carlos come and have this experience, have this impact on him, and be able to say, here's what it's led me to. I think we had to kind of do that first to really see like what the impact was. So in a way, Carlos is really helping us think about this. I'm happy to tell you about the story of how the award started, but I wanted to make sure I didn't lose. You had a question for Zabet, and I see that time's limited. I'm happy to tell you, but maybe you could just repeat the question for her.
Sure.
So make sure that she gets the last word.
I think
Right,
I know it. I still know it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, I
you.
do.
Okay.
I started the work actually because there was a sort of anti-Semitism in my class, because I told you that many of my students are Palestine, and there were like, that they said things which I thought they are really anti-Semitic, and I have to do something against it. But at the same time, I noticed that it was sort of to protect themselves, to find their identification, their own identity, because they are not Germans, although they are born in Germany, and most of the parents are in Germany as well. So the real problem, I think, is racism in Germany, and the uprising racism, like right-wing sided parties who get bigger and bigger. And from this trip to Israel I told you about, then it started to be really dealing with the past. But for the students, I think it's the first step to get sensible about injustice and against racism. That's what Chrissy said, for example. So the students are now asking for, oh, we want to talk about this, and we want to talk about that, and let's go to this demonstration, or let's do this one. And at our events, at the beginning, I was always doing the opening. Now the students are doing it quite often, and they're always talking about what happened to the AfD, the party, and they are much more radical actually than I am. Well, no, I'm as I can be as a teacher, I have to say it like that way. And I think they got really political because of that work, and to dealing with the past was for them the first step to get politically involved.
And you
Zabet, I have some questions that I think I will send you via email about the East German sentiment about anti-Semitism and the different attitudes between former East German and former West German, and how your students feel about being in Berlin, which was, of course, the epicenter of the Cold War in many ways. But I think I'll send these questions to you via email. Hadass had her hand up, so maybe we'll let her ask the last question of the day.
Well, I know that you, thank you, Alan, and I know that you love to end exactly on time. So I just, when I was hearing this, I have to say it's amazing, and I was very much moved by what you were describing, the work. And I was wondering what happens when the students go back to their communities that didn't undergo this work, this emotional work, and this reckoning with their own past. And so I don't know if we have time for that. I understand if not, but I'm just curious about that.
Maybe I can give you one, or I can tell you one story for the last. Yeah. Well, when we went to Israel, there were some parents who didn't allow the kids to go, and they asked me to help them to convince their parents, and I was thinking how I could do it. But when we had the gathering with the parents, it were actually the other Arabic parents who convinced the others to let them go, because how they said it's how important it is that the kids can see their own country, the country where they come from. And when we came back, there was one girl. She didn't want to go at the beginning because she was frightened to go to Israel, because she thought she's Muslim, she's wearing that she will be attacked or anything, and she loved to be there. and she came back and told her parents. And since then, the parents, they never went to Israel themselves, but since her daughter went, they went as a family 3 times since then. So this is that, yeah.
That's amazing. That's
They-
amazing.
Let me second Carlos's sentiment, Zabet, that you're really, for those of us who see ourselves mainly as teachers more than anything else, you're really quite inspirational. It's been wonderful to hear from you today and to meet you today. To have such impact on your students is just extraordinary. I want to also thank Carlos for his initiative in this whole project. And Joel, it's been very nice to meet you and hear about your foundation. And I want to just thank all of you, and to the extent that I can help move this along, just let me know.
Thank you so much. I want to say one more thank you to you, Alan, the Schusterman Center, the Schusterman Center community for joining us. I mean, it's been an honor and a privilege to introduce Zabet and my dear brother Joel to OU, the OU community. And so just thank you for bearing witness with us. And stay tuned to updates on whether or not this is going to happen. I'm just going to go ahead and claim it. We're going to bring Zabet students to OU next summer, next June. So look for more info about that coming forward. So thank you guys. And it was a great conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.